Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points, joined on this fine Thursday night by Raj Chapalu, who is, what did we decide? Video analyst for
video film analyst, whatever you want to put,
not
in
senior
front of
though, not senior because you are not old.
Yes,
My title has everything to do with my age,
with your age, right?
Nothing to do,
right? Nothing to do with the
else.
actual resume. Just how many years you're on this planet. Yeah,
I didn't even ask for it. No. Today on the show, we got to talk about that game. That was incredible.
Yeah,
An absolutely bananas game to open up the NBA Finals, and I think really kind of give way to some better ratings here moving forward. I know a lot of people apparently don't care about that, and then they will say they care when game 2 rates really well, but still an incredible game one that Indiana felt like it was out of for most of. And then the final couple minutes happened. Indiana does Indiana things, and here we sit. Indiana rips away home court advantage from the best home court advantage team in recent NBA history, Raj.
Yeah.
They are literally the most dominant home playoff team in the last few decades. Just absolutely insane advantage there. Indiana just kind of they played an ugly first half, turned the ball over 19 times. Just unreal to flip the script as quickly as they did late in that game.
Yeah, I was, through this whole week, because the NBA does this weird thing where they shove all the games in for the first 3 rounds, and then they give you this wide break between now and the finals. And everyone that I'm talking to is like, it's gonna be pretty boring, right? 4 or 5 games. When's the draft? Where's KD going? Tibbs just got fired. I'm like, this is gonna be like Indiana's legit. This is a good team. They did not fake their way here. They beat good teams to get here. Now you can kind of talk about the injuries that they, got some advantage from. But I was trying to tell people, like, this is a really good Indiana team. And the amount of text today with when they were coming back, oh my God, what happened? It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What happened? You turn this game off? Like, this is what Indiana does. They play a 48-minute game. They are at your neck throughout the entire night. And I think there was an adjustment to Oklahoma City, right? I tweeted about this, where the Knicks, they have 2 entry points into your offense. They have Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. Oklahoma City doesn't really offer you that. So you have to kind of get offense in different ways. I thought Miles Turner being a pick and pop threat really had an advantage. I thought that before the series. I thought you saw that tonight. And Anthony,
OKC went with one big throughout the game.
They adjusted first, right? They adjusted before they even touch knuckles before the fight. I think that's what fighters do. But they
gloves.
Gloves, excuse me. Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's open hand fighting that exists.
Sure. You don't normally you don't like when you're in like a bar fight, you don't go like ready, break. Like that's
no, not in a bar fight. There's UFC. There's also gloves. Okay, well, never mind.
Most like fights where you shake hands in the middle of the ring have some kind of protection for your hands.
Right. And down the stretch, it was funny because both teams had multiple timeouts, and the way they were just letting each other play, I love the flow of this game. You kind of got to see a back and forth. I like that they didn't give Siakam that foul, right? Make both teams earn it. I really enjoyed that. You got a Shea miss. And then Anthony, I'm trying to think. So I forgot what season it was. Kobe had this season where he had a bunch of game winners. There's like I think there was one over in Milwaukee. There's a few other than
Toronto, Sacramento.
Yes,
I remember that was the
was that the 2012
season? Was it?
I think there was a Dwight season, and there was also right after the 2 titles, maybe it was 2011, I think, where he had a bunch of game winners, but it really didn't translate to the playoffs. Not because Kobe wasn't amazing, it's just he didn't really have a chance for the late game heroics. I don't remember a season where one player had this many game winners in the exact same fashion in terms of just step backs, ugly jumper. And when he shot that, I was like, this is going
I thought it was short.
Really? I thought
I
that
thought it
was
was
in.
short. I was like, "Oh, shit, short." But it just kinda kept floating,
Yeah,
and it's like, "What?" No, I you're absolutely right that the ball found Hallie, and I'm like, "Oh, no,
right.
OKC."
Yeah,
And you know that every OKC fan who has paid attention to Indiana's playoffs this year also was like, double, triple, quadruple, foul, quintuple. Do anything, get the ball out of his fuck. It was an unbelievable. Here's actually Raj, um, the moment that I think it was Turner made a three
okay.
to cut it to 8
Mhm.
with like a couple minutes to go. And I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah,
Because the thing that Indiana does, because I didn't think that like when the Knicks choked, it was a legit choke. I thought they played really poorly and Indiana just hit everything and it was a nightmare of errors in
sure.
that. But you had Shea hit some big shots down the stretch there. You had, I never felt like OKC was playing that poorly. They were playing worse than they did over the course of the game, but it
Mhm.
wasn't like, oh my God, what are you doing? It
Sure.
was Indiana. They'll do this thing where it's like, um, they take advantage of prevent defense,
Mm,
and it's they attack the corners. It's like they all nod to each other, like they all like look at it. It's like if it touches your hands, it's going up, right?
yeah,
If you have a decent look here, or you have to anticipate a decent look here, and it's got to go up with confidence. And all of the guys on the court recognize it. They all see it. And Raj, I can't recall very many superpowers like this,
yeah.
where it is such an unmistakable belief what those guys see when they're out there in that spot.
It to me, it starts with their leader, leader of the snake. And this is not the time for this conversation, but I tweeted about kind of the comparison, Anthony, between obviously on a higher level, but Lonzo and Tyrese, right? They play a style of basketball that's very where it involves the whole team, right? And there's this just way where they allow their teammates, and it's just there's just no selfishness. And I'm not saying other stars are selfish in the way they play. It's just there's a selflessness that they play with where Halliburton, it does not matter where he is on the floor, it doesn't matter if he's getting the assist. He's just like, where's the advantage coming from? And in the fourth quarter, they were very happy to let Andrew Nemhard be the one that has the ball, right?
Mhm.
Tyrese is like, I'm getting chased. I can't get around. I'm not being able to dribble. Here, Andrew Nemhard, you run the offense. And in the fourth quarter, Nemhard was just incredible, I thought, in terms of just holding the pace of the flow of the game. He had an airball three that found Siakam's hands. I thought Siakam found a way to kind of have an impact too. But Anthony, where would this game be if Lou Dort didn't have 5 for 9 from three, right? It's just like Indiana withheld, like they withstood a lot of punches, hard punches where OKC tried to really put them away. But this is just the makeup and the character of this basketball team, which is why all week this is going to be a good series. Nothing about Indiana felt fake to me. Yes, they were down big in this game, but it never felt they were out of reach. The broadcast, kept bringing up, and I think we're going to speak about the, ESPN broadcast a little bit later in terms of the way they sold this game, but they kept on, bringing up how, Indiana has X amount of turnovers, then only down, Y or something like that. And I felt that too. That's why, like, again, I thought this game continued to stay interesting, and Halliburton did what he did at the end of the game. But this is just a really freaking good team that's deep. Obi Toppin looks super nervous to start, but I thought he found his way. TJ McConnell hit some shots. Anthony, we have all watched games where it's kind of getting away, and some guy just knows, like, okay, I just got to get a 2 here, right? I got to get a
Yeah.
score in some way. And TJ McConnell just got those, I thought, baskets for them when the game felt like it was getting out of reach. He was their leading scorer for a little while in the first half as well. But
We're gonna talk a little bit about this in a second. But so essentially the back half of the show, I want to talk about lessons that the Lakers can take from both of these teams.
mhm, mhm.
Um and I'll give my lessons right now. I won't like expand on them. We'll get to them later. I'll let you think about it for for the meantime. But for me, the lesson to learn from OKC is how like every single thing they have done organizationally has kind of led to this moment.
Mhm.
There's like no wasted motion
Sure.
organizationally. Um, I still think they could have done more. I kept on thinking when they were struggling to shoot, outside of Lou Dort making 5 threes, how Cam Johnson would really help them. And one lesson to learn on the negative side here is like if OKC had one more dude, another can't like a Cam Johnson on their team, they'd be running laps around everybody. And to me, like one lesson, while I do think that they deserve credit for this methodical build up to this point in this great roster that they have right now, but I also think that when you have this opportunity, when you have a chance to go out and win a championship, you push chips into the middle of the table.
Yeah.
Period. So that's going to be we'll talk about that a little bit later. But from the Pacers side of it, you mentioned it a second ago, Raj, how Hallie's perfectly fine just being like, look, they have to guard me
Yeah.
40 feet from the basket when I don't have the ball. Nem, you go ahead, do your thing. Matherin had a stretch there where he looked really good. Like he's really comfortable in his own skin, and I think that's something that the Lakers are going to have to learn here, especially going into the season where you're going to have at the very least Luka and LeBron, and probably Austin too. But you're definitely going to have Luka and LeBron on your roster this year, and Luka is going to have to be more comfortable, more productive off of the ball than he has been to this point. And I had this, Aaron and I got into it a little bit because he was like, if you're out on Luka ball, you're out on Luka. And I'm like, I don't think it has to go that far.
Yeah.
I'm not out on Luka. I'm saying that the Lakers need to switch up their diet a little bit and allow LeBron to also cook while Luka is also out there. And the Pacers, we just saw it in that you had Neesmith hit a three, you had Turner hit a three, you had Siakam going to work, and then finally when it comes time to go out and win the game, okay, the ball's going to find Hallie, and he's the clutchest guy in the sport right now.
Yeah.
And I think like that to me, those to me are the two lessons to take from this. Is like, yeah, you might have this great on-ball creator and dynamic offensive weapon in Tyrese Halliburton, but the Pacers would be sold short if they didn't also utilize Siakam, if they didn't also utilize Nemhart and all of that stuff.
I think that's the right word that I used at the end there, where you said it's a different diet, and that's the versatility that Indiana has. That again, Luca is more than capable. It's not like Luca can't get into this range, right? And he does. He has the full court. He has the hit ahead passes and stuff like that. But just there's a variety of offense that Indiana hits you with, where you have to defend multiple players, and you don't know who the play is called for each possession, right? And like there's no reason LeBron, again, I'm not trying to diminish LeBron's role, but there's no reason LeBron can have a Siakam type of role the way they involve him into it, right? They hunt mismatches in the correct way. I think Miles Turner as a spot up guy just really that gives them an extra level of versatility. Then sometimes in this game, Anthony, they went Siakam at the 5. They said, we'll match up with you and go in small ball when you have Chet, at center as well. Again, and Halliburton's ability to where he understands his weaknesses as well. Halliburton isn't a great pull-up jump shooter either. That's just not what he is. And so the way he has to drive and attack is different. The way he attacks angles and attacks the basket, he's not a super athlete either. Doesn't have a huge physical imposing body either. Like Luke is able to brush guys off, and just the way he's able to get everyone involved. And Indiana's deep, right? That's another lesson. Not to get into what I'm going to talk about later, but they're a deep team too. They went 11 guys tonight in a game one in the NBA finals. They could have easily cut it short and say this is our 8, but they have 11 guys that they trust to come in. They had Thomas Bryant play 9 minutes or tonight in terms of be able to help them
Hit a big
produce
three.
stuff. Yeah, and so they're just super deep, and they have a team that just believes, and you can tell like it doesn't matter what the deficit is, they just come at you for 48 minutes, and you got to be prepared for that. OKC obviously they lost game one, I believe against Denver, a few rounds ago, so they're they've been in this position before, but this is huge for Indiana. I thought they would, I thought they would split the home and home. I thought they would get game 2. Game 1, I thought would be really tough adjusting Oklahoma City's, reckless defense that they're able to put out there. But that's a huge win for Indiana. We are at least guaranteed Anthony a 5-game series. I'm very glad about that. I predicted OKC in 6, but I'm
We're not
hoping.
guaranteed that. Indiana could sweep.
Oh, that's a good point. That is a very good point.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, if Indiana sweeps the series, I will be
I know you will.
unbelievable. I will never shut up for the rest of my life about those frauds. But anyway,
you'll be that meme where it's like you're sitting at the funeral, but instead of it's just like first round pick in the back.
I will be sitting there. Peace signs. I get there.
Right. With a draft board
all right,
behind
so
you.
I want to talk really quickly. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this because it's not really what people like tune into us for. But ESPN and the NBA, do you recognize this is the NBA Finals?
Oof.
Do you understand? Like, you are trying to. Ethan and I talked about this. I don't know, Raj, if you checked out the episode with me and Ethan. And
not
Ethan
yet.
and I talked about how, like, the Cavs Spurs series, when LeBron first got to the finals, was his grand introduction to the casual basketball fan, right? And it was treated as such. They hyped up the fact that he scored 27 points straight against the Detroit Pistons. You have the famous Kevin Harlan call. LeBron James with no remorse for famous life, or regard for human life. You had all of these, like, it was treated as this momentous occasion because we were being introduced to the guy who was going to be the face of the league for the next 20 something years. Sure. And if you're the NBA right now, and there's every criticism in the book being levied against you, that this is going to rate poorly, that it's too small markets, nobody cares about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, nobody cares about Tyrese Halliburton, nobody cares about, you have to rise to the occasion to present this thing and be like, no, fuck you guys. This is going to be great. You have to have Mike Breen monologuing before the game. On one hand, you have Goliath.
Yeah, where was that?
The scoring differential, with the MVP, with the home court advantage. On the other side, you have the heart attack kids, they of the comeback. You have Tyrese Halliburton, who was only given the choke sign to the New York Knicks just last series. They knocked those guys out too. And there's nothing like that. It's a pregame show with Stephen A. Smith showing off his shitty white suit. Like, it's the Stephen A. Smith show. It's the point of all of ESPN's content is to hype up ESPN's content. The game is just the canvas that Stephen A. gets to paint with. And that's why ESPN's coverage sucks, is because they've convinced themselves that the star of sports isn't sports. It's Stephen A. Smith. And it's like, what are we doing? The game itself is being taped, apparently, with handheld video cameras in 720p video clarity. It's just there's nothing on the court that would indicate that it's the NBA Finals. There's a dozen shitty logos out there over the course of the game, but again, you wouldn't know that was a finals game other than the fact that, like, the players treated it as such. It was just I was just blown away by how poorly ESPN handled this.
I was, reading some of the conversation, and if you go look at the way Adam Silver, and it makes sense, right? He's trying to sell his new idea. So the in-season tournament, the way they hype that up, right? The change in the courts, the promotion. Go watch the finals of that in Vegas versus what we just saw. Yeah, Anthony, I was in disbelief. I was, doing something. I was
that was TNT, right?
No, I think that was also ESPN if I have that correct. Or you might be right. Maybe it was TNT. I don't 100% remember who it was, but I was preparing to watch this game and it was like 5:38. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have some time. They probably have the starting lineups. They probably got to do all this stuff. And they went to the game and it was tipping off. Like they were already starting this basketball game. No lead up to it. It was just straight from the pregame into the basketball game. And yeah, the selling of this just was not what it should have been. These are two young players that are basically been the faces, of these playoffs. You have Shea, who obviously won the MVP, Halliburton, who has slayed, a bunch of great teams and has gotten to his first finals after an Eastern Conference Finals last year. Two young guys really, being successful in this league. I'm shocked the way they sold it. Anthony, I would love to know how much of this is just not being on cable. You know what I mean? So now it's on YouTube TV, which I think just, I don't know, something about it changes the way they present it. I guess I've never liked the YouTube TV logo everywhere. Like they plaster it on the court, they plaster it on the side, they plaster it on the scoreboard. I think we've gotten too far in terms of that. Obviously, that's a merchandise and branding kind of deal. I'm sure they have with YouTube TV, but something about like ever since the finals moved to like YouTube TV, it just has felt off. I don't know. I don't know if that's me just reading
Well,
into it,
the
but
big thing though is that because I did say it's insane that YouTube TV, which offers 4K, I pay for 4K. It's like $9 extra a month if you want 4K stuff. And if like it had ESPN provided 4K cameras, YouTube TV would put this in 4K, but ESPN decided not to. I don't know why. You're paying an arm and a leg for this. You may as well present it as best you can. And again, I always come back to, and I know the NFL is a bigger sport, and I know that it's all these things. I just can't fathom ESPN cheaping out on camera. I watch Monday Night Football. It looks like I'm sitting at the 50-yard line when I'm watching those games. And I'm watching this game and it's like hurting my eyes. Unless it's a slow-mo replay, it looks awful. It
yeah.
looks terrible. So it's like, yeah, I don't. And so anyway, I was looking and it was TNT provided
Okay.
the semifinals.
Gotcha.
I don't know if they did the final two, but like to your point, in that doubleheader when they had the semis, it was everywhere. In-season tournament here, special courts for it. You add again, TNT presents. If you watch TNT games on Max, it's in 4K. It looks incredible. And then you go to a champion. Could you imagine a Super Bowl in anything less than 8K? Like, could
Yeah.
you imagine, the World Series in anything other than, and I'm watching this and it looks like slam ball. It looks awful. And it's just
Yeah.
like, what? There's no high. Adam Silver had his like back and forth with reporters today, gave it his opening and closing remarks. He thanked TNT and all that stuff. And one of the questions that I really wish somebody would have asked him, and I know reporters are reluctant to do this because if you shit on ESPN, you're putting yourself at risk for a potential future employer. But I would love in a moment like that for somebody to press Adam Silver and be like, "Hey, how happy are you with ESPN's coverage of your sport?" Where you have Stephen A. Smith and saying things that LeBron James considers so derogative that he needs to step to him in a
Right.
basketball game. You have, it's you have what's going on right now in these finals where ESPN doesn't even bother to shoot this thing in 4K or even 1080. It wasn't even 1080. It was
Oh,
an
where
awful
are the player
experience.
introductions, Anthony? Like,
Yeah,
I
no, like there was no national anthem before the game. There was no player introductions. There was no pregame monologue. I remember Bob Costas would monologue about every series going into it. It was great.
uh, so this obviously isn't Lakers Celtics, and they can't sell it that way. But I'll never forget. Like I think my first actual finals, I tuned in as like a super fan was 07, 08, right? Lakers make the finals out of nowhere. the way they sold like Lakers Celtics, Anthony, in that where when they were doing the pregame warmups, it's like they were fueling my hatred of Kevin Garnett. Like it's
Yeah.
just the way they presented that, right? It was just a way where like it
They
got you
showed Kevin
amped.
Garnett yelling like anything's
Yes.
possible, and I'm like,
And,
oh, all right, let's go.
and
Even
you're
Ron Artest, it took 27 seconds for him to fight Paul Pierce in that series.
right, but there was like you were amped for it, right? And the court had the logo, which some people like, some people don't. But at least there was some kind of branding where this is special, this is different, this is not what we've been
Yeah,
watching before. You need to pay attention because this is the most important moment of our season. And instead, it was like, was this game one of the finals, or was this a game at the end of April? Like, how could you tell? There was no difference. I don't want to kill Mike Breen and Richard Jefferson and Doris Burke because I think they do try their best, but there's like I don't know something about that combination. Also, none of them they've kind of lost like the spark of it. Halliburton hit the game winner, and it was like I don't know. I didn't really feel like it matched the moment at
yeah.
all.
Listen to a game winner in March Madness and
Yeah,
compare that to a game winner tonight. And you're
like
talking about like
Halliburton just hit the shot of a lifetime,
64.
Anthony.
Like the
Yeah,
round of 64. Listen, or even or another comparison here, which might be a little bit more apples to apples. Watch the call of it was Joe Davis when Freddie Freeman hit his grand
I've
slam to win a World Series. And
listened to that many
he's
times.
ready for the moment. Freddie Freeman's rounding first base, and he's yelling, Gibby, meet Freddie.
Right,
And every
gold.
Dodgers fan understands exactly the reference that he's making. And in this one, it's like there wasn't even a viral like
No,
it was just like,
it
oh
was just
shit, wow, look at
it's
that.
good. That's what it was. It's good. And then Richard Jefferson said something like I don't know. He's tried to do some cheesy line about it.
Tried to hype it up. He was like, he is the moment, which is a pretty good
Oh,
line.
that's what Jefferson said. Yes, yes.
But it's like what was it? I don't know if it was Breen or Jefferson, but it was like there's a pretty good line. But it's like, where's Doris at there? And I love Doris. I think she's one of the most
Great
knowledgeable people about the sport going, period. But it's like, where you at, man? Like, well, you never see game winners in the finals. You know how rare a moment that is? This is their
0.3 seconds
first
left.
lead in the entire game is with 0.3 seconds to go.
Yeah.
You have just completely changed the outlook of this series with that one shot, with that run to get them back into the game. And it's like, well, that was fun. And it's like,
Yeah.
what? Anyway, I have to, Raj, I came into this one saying OKC in 3.
I remember. You are not alone, but yes, I do remember.
I'll eat my words on that front. I think I'm gonna look up the odds for OKC to win in 5.
Oh my god.
Just see what. Yeah, it's just I'm curious, Raj. You
Okay.
know, Avery might want some donut money, and that might be a decent source of donut money.
Okay.
So over the entirety of the game, it was all about how wow they're turning the ball over and they're only down by a dozen or something like
Right.
that, and they're hanging tight. They're making enough shots to stay in it. On one hand, you could see a game where now Indiana is more accustomed to the speed and the physicality that OKC plays with. Maybe they take better care of the ball and really kind of put a stranglehold on the series or grab a stranglehold of the series. But on the other hand, OKC was clearly the better team for the entirety of the game from what I was watching. And I thought J-Dub did enough to be pretty good, but it wasn't a great J-Dub game. Dort made those 5 threes, so that's an outlier performance there. I do think that they really, really missed another shooter, and Wallace was really quiet in this one too. Chet was really quiet. You know what surprised me, Raj, was the decision to go to one big from OKC
Try to match
because
up.
I just talked to Pete about this the other day, and I told him, I was like, the team that more quickly abandons a chunk
They
of their identity or their identity outright they wind up regretting it. And I actually think Dagno
You think
galaxy brained himself in this one.
he had too much time between now and between the finals and the end, and
Yeah.
just
I
talked
just
himself
thought
into
that it
it?
was like I just thought he just overthought it, and I didn't like the decision to
Yeah.
do that. But still, even with that said, they carried a double digit for the vast majority of the game. OKC did. I think they can very easily win game 2 here. And I think they're just as capable of winning in Indiana as New York won in Indiana. So like I'm not too worried that Indiana's going to go and be some overwhelming home court team. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being stubborn, but I still feel like OKC is clearly the better team here.
I'm not putting this on you, but this sounds like if you remember I think it was in the bubble where Paul George said like we're still in the driver's seat and they were down. I forgot what they were down or something like that. I think they
Yeah.
were down. I don't think it was the bubble, whatever series it was. I forgot what it was, but Paul George came out with this quote when they were down. Not putting it on there. Obviously, Oklahoma City should still be favored. That they won 68 games. I do think Indiana should be respected, and I think it shows how much respect they have in the Mark Dagnall locker room, right? That he went away from a starting lineup that again won 68 games. I think has lost 4 games in the playoffs. But that's how much he believes. Like, hey, we got to match up with the Siakam Turner front court that I cannot start Isaiah Hartenstein, who I thought played okay. But Anthony, my pushback just to what you were saying, Indiana had 66 points in the second half. They had 45 in the first half. They went on a blazing tear in that second half, and they found stuff that really worked. They won the fourth quarter 35-25, again, on the road, crazy environment, loud building. Indiana has their own version of that at home too. And you're 100% correct. Oklahoma City has the ability to go in there and win. I do think Indiana does get a push from their young players. It looked like some of them had some, nervousness in this one, but yeah, I think game 2 is going to be really exciting. I expect Oklahoma City to come out and punch hard, but I thought Shea came out with, this was the most aggressive Shea I've seen. 30 shot attempts. He shot incredibly well, 14 for 30 from the field. He took 6 threes, hit half of those. I thought he really tried to throw like a knockout punch tonight. So I think this is going to be a fun series. Again, I'm going to stick with my OKC in 6, but I thought it would be a 1-1 after this. And I think it's going to be 2-2 coming back here for game 5. At least I really hope it is. This should be a really fun series. But yeah, Indiana's legit, man. This is a team that comes at you every second. And they do not care if they're down 18 or they're up 10. They play the same way. And it's been cool to watch. And they have a really good coach. Rick Carlisle's been coaching his butt off this whole playoffs. I saw you share the tweet where he was kind of breaking down the X's and O's of a play, which is really interesting and cool to see him in that light. But yeah, I think this is gonna be a really, really fun series. And Oklahoma City shouldn't feel, like they're down, like they're out or anything like that. But that should be a wake up call, Anthony. Like, this is a darn good team, and we can't play, as you mentioned, prevent offense for a fourth quarter. Like, we gotta go. We have to be on our,
Yeah.
on our toes for the whole game.
The updated series price on betonline.ag is because Underdog doesn't do this, so I don't have to worry about pissing on sponsors here. But the updated price that I'm saying here is Thunder minus 345. They opened the series, Raj, minus 800.
Wow.
Okay. That's really good. You like I came into the series kind of hoping that the Pacers would win game 1 and the price would drop like this. So I think I might place that bet on the Thunder now at much better odds. But yeah, I think you're right to say that. Like, and it obviously at this point wouldn't shock me if the Pacers did win this series. It would have before. Now it wouldn't, because they won in OKC, which previously felt impossible with that rabid fan base that they have there and the refereeing that they get at home. But yeah, that was a really impressive win. I want to talk really quickly about the lessons from both of these teams. You heard mine. Do you have anything to add to mine, or do you want to expand on mine?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been kind of clear. Both the teams have had a really strong identity. I feel like for all season, they both really know who they are, right? And you can kind of joke about OKC and their team building, but the way that they do you don't have to do this as a team, but all the interviews are done together, right? And that's just an identity thing that they formed. And I think the Pacers have also taken this us against the world mentality, and they used last year to build on. They built on last year into this year. A lot of players are back, and that's one of the complaints I've had about the Lakers. One of the complaints of the conversation this summer. We've kind of argued about this in terms of building with a core versus kind of moving on from that core because you don't believe in them. But I think there is something to it where you watch both of these teams, and a lot of players are returning from last year. It could have been very easy, Anthony, for Oklahoma City last year to go, look, we lost against the Mavericks. We lost against a team we had home court against. We got to blow it up. We got to go get a bunch of, different pieces. And instead, they were like, hey, what were our flaws? All right, we needed one more defender and we need a big man. All right, let's go get Hartenstein and Caruso, right? And they've kind of kept everyone else other than Josh Giddey, which that trade still, I'm wondering if the Bulls were conscious during that. But in any case, yeah, so that's kind of what they're improving on. And Indiana as well. They could have traded Miles Turner 50 million times in the last 10 years. Instead, they're like, this guy is good. He's not perfect. He needs the team that fits around him, but we believe that Miles Turner is a good player that will produce when the playoffs come and when we need him. And he has. And it's another guy. Aaron Nesmith is a guy they found. Nemhard is in his third year or second year. Halliburton obviously is a guy that they've really built around. And Halliburton's another guy that's had his struggles as well. He's a guy that people have looked at and go, oh wait, was that fool's gold for a while, right? Were the Kings correct? And they've really stuck with him. So that's something that I think to learn to keep as a lesson as well. You don't have to keep all your players, but there is something to the notion of continually flipping your basketball team, which doesn't just include the players, includes the coach, right? Rick Carlisle's been there forever. Not forever, but he's been there for a while now in Indiana since leaving
I think for the
Dallas.
extent of the Halliburton run.
Yes, yeah, I forgot when Jason Kidd took over in Dallas, but Mark Daigneault has been there 4 or 5 years now. This includes 25 win seasons, right? They've really stuck to their coach, and I think that's something that matters when you look at the success of these teams. So hopefully that's something the Lakers look at. I'm not expecting them to fully, they don't really have the opportunity to do that in terms of how they believe the team should be run and how titles should be won every year and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but there is something to building with a group and kind of developing a group and then putting the correct pieces around it to work. And both of these franchises have done that.
You heard it first from Raj. He wants this.
Run it back! Run it back! Run it back! Run it back! Run it back!
No?
That's not exactly what I said.
No, I think the point about identity is huge. And again, it's why I didn't love OKC going away from their two bigs, right? Chet and iHeart got you here. Make Indiana play those guys off the court.
Right.
Indiana, like their identity is you saw it on full display, that late throughout that game. And Carlisle is basically looking over at Daigneault being like, make me change. Make me maybe if OKC wins that game one, then the Pacers adjust. But they aren't going to pre-adjust to something the Thunder haven't done yet. It's just and it's so on brand for Daigneault. That wiener, like, just let your team be good, man. You've been overwhelming against everybody all year. And I honestly, part of the reason why I think that that Indiana hung around for as much as they did was because, like, I don't know that OKC ever looked all that comfortable. They looked better. They looked like the more talented team, but it never really felt like OKC was like, yeah, this is who we are. It was just kind of, we'll make the shots that we have to. And you mentioned how aggressive Shea was, and I thought it was really interesting that Indiana was able to turn OKC into a heliocentric offense, and how that kind of put a cap on what they were able to do. OKC was able to do in that fourth quarter because Shea looked tired. Like that was the first time that I looked and Shea looked kind of wiped. So I don't know. I'm going to be really curious to see if Dagno goes back to the two bigs in game
Oh,
2.
can't now, can you? I mean, I don't know. That's interesting. That's a really interesting point. I'm not sure. Now you go back to the two bigs. I mean, I gotta check the lineup data in terms of how they played. I thought they were okay. But you mentioned Shea being I'm about tired, but it definitely looked like he was being impacted. And he still shot
Why,
well,
it's
but
relative.
yeah,
I've never seen him close to tired. And today I was like, that's
for
interesting.
sure. And that was one of my keys coming into this series. I thought Indiana had the best group of athletes at the guards and wings to throw at him that he's seen so far. Obviously, Minnesota had Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. I think they do it in different ways, but Nemhard and Neesmith are just hounds in a way that's a little
Yeah.
different, right? They don't get screened very easily. You have to really screen them out of a
Even
play.
Mathurin comes off of the bench. He had they tried to set a screen on him. He did a really good job of bumping the ball handler off of the screen, flattening the ball handler out, like so that he couldn't get into the paint.
Yeah.
Like it's just, both of these teams. One of the theories that I've kind of developed after these playoffs is it used to be you wanted the taller, longer defender because they tended to do a better job of keeping their guy in front by utilizing their length and all of that stuff. But what we've seen here is you have Lou Dort, you have Alex Caruso, you have Andrew Nemhard, you have Neesmith, you have Mathurin, you have even Shepard comes in and he works his ass off. Both Shea and Hallie, I think, really work defensively, and none of them are like 6'8" wings with 7'2" wingspans or anything like that. It's smaller guards who can really move their feet. They hand check like crazy and they keep their guys in front.
Yeah, they're also connected in a way that Minnesota just never was, right? And I think Minnesota is also a very good team, and that's why they beat us the way they did. But there's like a recklessness to the way Minnesota sometimes plays, where their guys get in foul trouble, and that's what's super impressive about Indiana. They're able to be physical, they're able to like be, as reckless as they can, but they don't foul. They don't put you at the line like that.
Yeah.
They don't pick up 4 fouls and whatever, picking you up full court, and that's something that they're gonna have to deal with. But that's a real key, I thought, coming into the series. I thought their athleticism at the guard spot, especially, it's different when it's Mike Conley as an entry point, right? That you can kind of attack. Versus the Pacers are like, if you want to attack Halliburton, there's like 3 wings waiting for you, and it's gonna be tough for you to kind of get him. And Halliburton's long as well, has his own kind of defensive advantages, has really good hands, bunch of steals, right? But yeah, I think Indiana's, they found something and they have a lot of confidence. They've already had confidence, but number one, seeing the other team adjust before you has got to have them like, oh, you think, okay, like you think that's gonna work? You think starting Kason Wallace is gonna fix that? All right, man. I'm surprised it's not Caruso. Like, what does he have to do to start? I'm surprised he hasn't. I don't think he's started.
He's like he's a Laker all over again.
It's just incredible. Like the third best player.
Time is a flat circle, Raj.
Like, I don't get what
I feel
they're
like
doing.
I've been asking, what does Alex Caruso have to do to start for half of my career?
Right. Yeah. He's like their third best player, and it's like they start every other player before finally getting to him, and his plus minuses are just absurd. I wonder what it was tonight, but he's a
It
plus
fell off
2
because he was in for the majority of that run when Indiana came back.
Yeah, but I mean, the guy that started over him was minus 13. So I'm not really understanding like where the
But
decision.
that's the thing, though, is that like the guy that starts instead of Chet or right, because they started iHeart,
Yes.
they didn't start Chet,
right?
Is a minus 13, and it's just like I just think it's completely overthinking it. I came into the series and I go into basically all series from now on thinking, because like the reason the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the shit out of the Lakers was because the Lakers never played Gobert off of the court. And the reason that OKC beat the shit out of the Minnesota Timberwolves because they played Gobert off of the court. And Gobert is such a big part of Minnesota's identity that, like, once you remove that safety blanket at the rim, all the other stuff starts to kind of, you see the seams, and you can go through all of these things where I thought Brunson became a lesser player over the course of that series, and that's the Knicks offensive identity. And once you tweak that, or once they have to, remember they had that game where Cat basically won that game for him, and I was like, oh, this is over. Because it's not like Cat can win you the series. That's not how New York has played all year, So this was super interesting. And I'm not saying that, like, the death knell is ringing for OKC because of this one decision, but it was one of those things where I'm like, why? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm in that locker room, I'm like, Coach, we have been overwhelming all year. What are you thinking here?
Yeah.
And honestly, I also like criticizing Dagno.
Obviously a very, very smart coach, obviously knows, what he's doing. And again, 68 wins don't come out of nowhere, but it's definitely, this is at least the second time, right? I think the other one was when he intentionally fouled when Jokic was on the bench, allowed Jokic to come back in, and then
Yeah, you're right.
Right. And so he did the
overcoaching.
When the game was kind of in hand, and Chet Holmgren goes out and misses 2 free throws and leads to the game winner for Denver. So that's he's kind of overthought some things, and I'm sure they're going to regroup and figure stuff out. But again, I just want to reiterate, this is a very good Shea game. They got incredible shooting for Lou Dort, right? It's not like Indiana shot the peel off the ball either. I think only Miles.
In the second half, they did.
Well, they did, but I mean, if you look at their 3-point shooting, no one went, insane from 3 either. I just, I thought that was
no. Toppin, I think, made 5 threes, didn't he?
Yes, I think Toppin went. Yeah, Toppin hit 5 threes, but yeah, I guess that kind of matches Lou Dort. I guess so, but
yeah, but Shea, 38 points for Shea. 15 for Dort. He had those 5 threes. Toppin went for 17 points. He hit his 5 threes. Outside of that, you're right. Like Neesmith made 3 threes. Siakam made 1. Turner made 2. You know when I knew that the Pacers were going to win this game, Raj? When Turner banked in the 3. I am telling you, this is a legit stat. No, it's not, but it feels like it. If you bank in a 3 in a close game, your winning percentage goes up by 3,000%.
Right.
I know analytics get carried away and all this stuff, but I'm considering this an official stat. When he banked in that 3, I was like, oh, all right, let's see where this thing goes.
Right.
Any final takeaways before we get out of here?
I'm
so. Do you want to talk? I want to talk about the heliocentric offense thing.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that
before we go.
Okay.
Because again, I think people take this. Aaron literally took it as criticism of Luka, and I don't mean it to be criticism of Luka, and Luka is better than Halliburton, right? So, part of the reason why you do the heliocentric, you run a heliocentric offense with Luka, is because he's the best in the world at it. So I understand it. I understand. I'm not knocking Luka. I'm not, I completely understand the process that leads to that takeaway. However, I think we as a society have moved beyond heliocentric offenses. And part of the reason that, like, Steph is as special as he is because he is just as impactful when he has the ball as when he doesn't. I think part of the reason that the Pacers are so terrifying late in these games is because at any moment it can come from Neesmith, it can come from Nembhard, it can come from Turner, and oh, by the way, there's Halliburton sitting over there, and that's honestly part of the reason why I was nervous about OKC coming into these playoffs, is because I don't know who that other guy is. Like, I don't necessarily see. Like, I think Jalen Williams is he's a really good third best offensive player, but he's thrust into being your second best offensive player.
Yeah.
Do you understand why I'm like, I want to see the Lakers switch up their diet here?
Well, so I always see Shea thrown into this cup, and I don't think he's that. Like, that's just not the way OKC runs their offense. He's not a guy they just give the ball at the top and do a 1-4 flat and say, here, Shea, cook, right? There's a lot of optionality to their offense, and that's why they've been tough to guard. And now Shea's special from the mid range. He also gets it in transition, right? He gets it in ways that's not just staring at the top. And I always remember, Kobe has a host of quotes on basketball that still are very relevant today, and I think the one that gets put up the most, and it's usually used to disparage Harden, which is a little unfair because I think there's a lot of players that play this way. I think Luka's also in this batch. I'm not saying Luka's going to play like this forever, but it is something I always think about. Where Kobe's like, "Look, it's never going to win that way when you're able to be in front of the defense the entire time, right? It's very tough to have an offense that's successful in the postseason when a team can predict your moves, right? And I think there's a level of predictability with that even when you're the best in the world at it, which I think Luka is. I have Luka in Shea's tier and whoever else you want to put him in. Even at that level, there's still a level of versatility that you need at that time, and that's why I think LeBron gets thrown into heliocentric as well. But LeBron's also not a guy that just dribble, mid-range shot, step back three, right? That was really Harden's thing, and obviously Luka does that as well. But yeah, I think that's something the Lakers are going to have to kind of update. And if you look at the past championships, Anthony, who's won that way, where it's like one guy dominating the ball for 90% of the time?
Not even LeBron.
Yeah,
when he won his championship, he had Kyrie. Not
exactly.
even Luka, honestly. When he got to the finals, he also had Kyrie, or he had Brunson. It's like, yeah, to me, it's not just about the heliocentric nature of what we're talking about here too. It's that Luka needs to find a way to be a threat when he doesn't have the ball. And a lot of times he gives up the ball and he just kind of goes and stands on the other side of the court. And it's like, no, you got to be more effective in those spots. Set a pin down screen or receive a pin down screen, float down to the corner. When was the last time you saw Luka head down to a corner? I don't know if I've ever seen him take a corner three that wasn't like designed sideline or baseline out of bounds, with the shot clock going, it's got to be. I just think, the nature of the sport has really evolved. And one of the parts of that evolution is we demand more out of players in general now, right? Adam Silver was asked about the injuries and stuff like that. And one of the theories, I think probably the most popular theory for why there are so many injuries nowadays is because of how hard everybody plays defensively compared to back in the day where they used to load manage on defense. And if we're asking more of everybody, it stands to reason that we are also asking more of superstars. And I think one of the things that we have seen with superstars is you can't be a one-way superstar. You can't be a one-dimensional superstar. That's the Harden thing. It's the concern some might have with Luka. But like LeBron, when he was at his peak, was a two-way. He was a terrifying force on both sides of the court. Anthony Davis, when he won a championship, was a terrifying force on both sides of the court. Steph became a league average defender so that his offensive impact was completely overwhelming. And it's like, we need Luka to be a better defender. We need Luka to be more willing and able to impact the game when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And when you look at these teams that are having this success, Shea is a brilliant defender. I thought he was incredible defensively tonight. And that's on a game where he had 38 points. So it's like, when we're looking ahead to what the Lakers need to improve next year, one of those steps forward is going to have to come from their superstar.
I was listening to so it's all Steph is so good at like when you watch him at his camps, like he has these like really great sound bites.
Yeah,
He has this one where he was talking. He said the worst thing you can do is just stand and have your hands, like,
I
hey,
remember
give me the
this.
ball.
Yeah,
Yeah. And he's like, every other action is the right decision, no matter what you choose. Screen away, screen for your teammate, cut, back
yeah.
cut. Like he's like, every other decision is the right decision. I was thinking about that from like a Luca terms, obviously as a Lakers person. I'm not saying Luca does this like to, attack his teammates or embarrass them or anything like that. I just think that's his natural disposition to be like, hey, like shot clock's running down.
He's
Like
really bleeping good on the ball.
he's freaking amazing, right? And
Yeah,
I think that's the next step for him to where I don't think anyone's asking him to be Steph or be Buddy Hield or come curling off 2 down screens like that. No one's asking for that, but
no,
there's like a little bit of all right. I'm not involved here, but let me be a threat at least. But if you're standing at the wing 30 feet away, you're not a threat. Like no one's really they're guarding you, but it just kind of breaks down, your offense in a way. And I think that's something that all three of them, Austin including in this, LeBron and Luca, all three, there's got to be a little bit more versatility to their attack to where it can't be shut down as quickly. So that's something interesting going next season. The point about you can't be at one way is very fascinating to me. I'm looking at the playoffs and even these super defensive guys, Anthony, if they can't contribute a little bit on offense, they're benched. Like Josh Hart got benched in the Knicks series. That
yeah.
dude is freaking an amazing rebounder. One
Another
of the
part of
best.
their identity that was gone. He
That's a
played
good
more
point.
minutes than basically anybody else in the NBA this year, and he got
Great
benched.
point. And they benched him for Mitchell Robinson, which I don't know, might have been the right. I mean, Mitchell Robinson was extremely impactful in that series. They needed
Tibbs
him.
got fired, so somebody didn't think it was the right move.
They also blew a big lead in game 1, right? I think they were up big
Yeah.
and blew that lead to the Pacers. Maybe that series turns around differently. I also don't know if Tibbs, like I'm back and forth on if Tibbs should have been fired. I don't know, the Eastern Conference Finals beat Boston, but yeah, just you look at the defense versus offense, right? Towns, how incredible he was offensively. The story of this summer is how he can't guard. Now, some people have taken that to a very extreme, bar, but yeah, but just the general basketball conversation, I think this summer is Towns is an awesome offensive player, but can you survive with he and Brunson defensively? Think about that conversation, Anthony. Brunson averages 30 for that series. He averaged 30. Towns
Yeah.
had a fourth quarter where he scored 20 plus. The conversation
wasn't the defensive rating when Brunson was on the court, wasn't it near 150?
There's no way. That's no way that's possible.
Was it like, but like,
there's no way.
wasn't it nearing where maybe it was when him and Cat were on the court? It was
Oh,
nearing
God.
150. It was like, I think it was earlier in the series.
Okay.
That's when I saw that. I don't know what they
Okay.
finished at, but like, and look, J1 makes a good point here where they say that Luca is a
Yeah.
very good rebounder. He helps out. He does. Like, I'm not saying. I think that I'm not expecting Luca to go out and play even Shea type defense because he's not built that
Sure.
way. He's not that kind of an athlete. But can you stand in the middle of the paint without getting a defensive 3-second in the a call and gum up the offense? Can can you read the situation and operate as the low man because he is very physically gifted. He's an extremely strong dude.
Super smart too. He understands all these defensive concepts. It's just
Yeah.
sometimes he chooses not to do it.
Yeah.
That's the point. Yeah.
And it's like the whole reason that the Lakers should more thoroughly benefit from having LeBron and from having Luca is that they should make each other's lives easier. You have, LeBron has Luka on his team. That means LeBron can focus a little bit more on defense, vice versa. You have, if Luka has the ball, LeBron can set a screen and he can get himself going downhill, and also vice versa. Like, there are all of these things. These guys should compound each other's strengths. I've never heard of a team complain, damn it, we have too many ball dominant, incredible wings on my team. Like, that's never been a thing. This was the first time in my life that was a complaint with the Lakers. It was like, LeBron and Luka didn't look comfortable. And it's like, yeah, that's a failure. That's organizational failure that those guys didn't figure out a way to make that work. And so, I think LeBron needs to be more, willing and able to impact the game without the ball. I think same can be said about Luca. They need to find a way to make Austin more dynamic when the three of those guys are on the court at the same time too. But to me, I think the key lesson here, and you said it earlier, and if there's anything that people listening to the show or watching the show walk away with, is that the Lakers need to find an identity.
Sure.
They have to they have to stand for something. And oftentimes that doesn't necessarily always come from your star. That's an organizational thing too. You
Yeah.
compound your star, you build on your star's strengths, and you make up for your star's weaknesses. But also there has to be a real ideology from on high in your organization. And I
Yeah.
don't believe that actually exists with the Lakers. The ideology at the top of the Lakers is we need to stay employed. The Rambi need to stay employed. Rob needs to stay employed. Jeannie needs to make sure her friends stay employed. And until it's like, all right, here's how we're actually going to build out a basketball team, a viable basketball team. Here's our vision. Here's how we're going to execute it. The Lakers are going to be playing catch up against teams that do have that vision.
Yeah, and I think that's where, again, when you get a player like Luka Doncic, I think there's a lot of low hanging fruit that I think the Lakers can go at. I think Luka as a screener is just something that the Lakers can implement, and Luka can implement as well. I think that's something that can be easily fixed. But to your point of needing an identity, look, when you go get Luka, I think your identity kind of gets formed a little bit. He's so special in these areas that I think you kind of build a team within that. And like, you don't want to build a team where you're like, okay, Luka, you do everything, right? But I do think there is something like building on your superstars' strength. Like, again, I tweeted this about Halliburton, but like, the Pacers saw what he was special at, and we're like, okay, we're just gonna get a bunch of dudes that run hard, physical athletes that run the floor super hard for him. They obviously sought out Siakam as a guy that can do that, and Siakam's strength was a very much of a transition player. But I think with the Lakers, I think the lowest hanging fruit they can get is, again, I don't understand how this happened, Anthony. How do you go get Luka Doncic and not understand, like, yeah, we need a guy that catches the ball above the rim. That should be and I think that was to an extent, right? The Mark Williams kind of grab was kind of in that vein of right away, like, we got to go get a big man, and they sought out a tall guy who can jump and dunk without knees apparently, but he can still run and jump and dunk.
Once a month. He gets up there
yes,
once a month, and then he's got to take a break, and then you see him next month.
he had a hell of a time with the Lakers loss, by the way. That dude enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
the highlight of his career. His championship. Congrats, Mark.
He'll be in the league next year. But yeah, I think that's kind of the first place, and that's how you kind of build a team. And that's where I think you also help your star out as well, right? It's clear Luka's going to need help on the defensive end, no matter what how much he improves. But I think that's part of it too. Like, what was the most special part about the 2020 team, Anthony? Was LeBron going, I'm defending every night. I want DPOY, which probably was an award that was out of his reach in terms of just the other defensive players in the league. I think Giannis took it from AD that season, but in any case, I think LeBron's decision there to be like, I'm locked in on the defensive end, and I think that's something Luka's going to have to. He doesn't have to be obviously Kawhi Leonard, prime Kawhi, but there's a level of, like, you just can't get beat in the way he does, like, sometimes in like I'm giving up here because I can. I'm Luka Doncic, so I'm not held to the same standard you are. And it's like, that's the stuff that I think, I don't want to get into locker room psychology, but I bet that has an impact in some kind of way. So
no, you hear it from all teams that have stars that bust their ass consistently. It's like, if I see that guy working that hard, I also feel like I have to work that hard too. And if that's true, and if that's a widely held belief across all of sports forever, the inverse of that also has to be true, where it's like, well, if I see that guy take a playoff here and there and coach never says anything to him, well, then darn, I got beat backdoor. All right, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, Viraj, for hopping on. Anything you want to plug before we get you out of here?
did my first Sparks piece, which is cool. Did some film work on that. So Kelsey Plum and De'Arica Hamby, pick and roll game. So I just wrote about that. You can check that out on Lakers on Silver Screen and Roll, and just did a JJ Redick one as well. Went back and watched the playoffs to kind of learn his tendencies and stuff like that. So yeah, that was fun.
Fun. It's always great when somebody says, "Yeah, that was fun," and they're dead in the eyes. Yeah, perfect. All right, that is going to do it for this episode
5 games, yeah,
of the Lakers Lounge podcast. And this week's episodes here of the Lakers Lounge podcast. I do want to make you guys aware of this. I saw Pete and Jovan did a show together today on Jovan's feed. You guys have seen Pete become more of a staple on our feed here. I plan on doing more stuff with Jovan here as well. We also we can now officially announce this. The plan is to have the first episode of the Great Western Forum go live the day after the NBA draft. The three of us are going to get together with some friends of ours and all of that stuff, over the course of that episode. But we want these to feel like real events. So ESPN, take notes for what we do to make it an actual event. But so keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for news on that front. I'll update you guys as best I can as we get ready for that. But yeah, until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Raj Chapalu. This has been, they're going to be Dark Galaxy. They are going to be pre-recorded. Well, at least for now. The first one's going to be pre-recorded so that we can kind of combine interviews and all that stuff. But the plan is for not just will they be live on occasion, but we want to do like in-person shows. So we're going to plan that out as well. So keep, again, this is going to be, kind of I want it to be the best Lakers podcast content that you're going to find. That's literally what I am aiming for. So come on this journey with us. But anyway, yeah, have a great rest of your weekend. Make somebody else's, and we will talk to you on Sunday.